So recently, we got the confirmation from Illumination Studios and from Nintendo that they were going to be moving forward with another film in the Super Mario Bros. Franchise. And, well, yeah, I feel like this is probably one of the most obvious announcements of all time. Like, don't get me wrong, I was one of the skeptics when this thing was first announced way back when. I wasn't sure that Super Mario was going to translate very well into a movie format, and on top of that, I, like many others, didn't think all that highly of the choices for some of the voice actors. Chris Pratt and Seth Rogen were the two I was the most worried about, and part of me did suspect it was going to be a bit of a flop. And I think at first a lot of other people thought the same, that it would be a hated failure, the latest in a long line of disappointing video game adaptations. And if you only take the critics into account, then you could conclude it was indeed a failure. It only has a 59% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a rotten score, and that's not what you want to see. But it turns out this is one of those instances where it very much feels like the professionals are wrong, that they are up their own asses, they're a bit elitist, and they hate fun, because the audience score tells a different story about the reality of the situation. It has a 95% audience approval rating. Not too shabby if you ask me, so pretty much the majority verdict was, it was damn good, and not only that, it ended up making a whole lot of money, grossing over $1.3 billion off a budget of $100 million, so big time financial success. So it was obvious to anybody with a brain that they'd want to go back to the well. You don't release the third most financially successful animated film ever and then say no to a potentially bigger payout. Even if it never hits those highs again, the draw is still too great. This thing drew in the crowds like nothing else, and so the sequel is needed. But what form would that sequel take? For me, logic would dictate that you run back the story, so to speak, but with a few changes. So you'd have Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, and Donkey Kong go up against Bowser again. But this time, I guess Bowser would probably team up with somebody fresh. Maybe he ends up getting betrayed by his newfound ally. But then I did note something interesting. Apparently Nintendo and Illumination are avoiding calling this thing a sequel, and rather calling it another film that will explore the world of Mario. And so to me, this could mean a number of things, but I think the most likely is that it is simply silly corporate talk, as in, the film's not going to be marketed as a sequel or referred to as Super Mario Bros. 2, but will still obviously be following on from the story that was being told in the first movie. And so with that in mind, what's that film going to look like? Okay, so I think the most obvious and straightforward option is, like I said, Bowser returning. I would originally have said that you should wait a film or so before bringing him back so that absence makes the heart grow fonder, but nah. Jack Black was way too good to sit out for that long a time. I need my fix. So I guess maybe they keep him in the small cage for the next one at first, and then maybe the Koopalings are going to bust him out. Maybe that's the main hook of the film. Mario and Co. versus the Koopalings, and maybe Bowser. I also wouldn't put it past them to keep him in the cage and just have them face the Koopalings, only for Bowser to get free right at the end for a final climactic battle. I'd say those are the general thoughts that I've had about future films in the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, or at least the first film that follows on from the original film. Because you can't really go into a spin-off just from the first film alone. I think you need more time with the characters to flesh them out and flesh out the world before you go in that direction. And yeah, the more I think about it, the more I feel like this is probably the only real option. The Koopalings, and then of course, Bowser Part 2. That should probably be the next film. And then you can start getting into some spin-offs, further sequels, and really start to develop more of a cinematic universe. And yeah, maybe cinematic universes are a bit played out at this point, but I love them, and I'll always love them. The MCU's stale, but the Nintendoverse is not. So bring on all the options, right? But where do you go from a second movie? What direction do you take? Well, then you've got the 3 spin-off directions, I think. Pretty much every single actor involved in the first film has indicated they are very, very interested in reprising their roles in subsequent films. They want to come back. And a lot of them are very interested in doing spin-offs where they're the lead. All coming up with their own ideas. And yeah, why wouldn't you? They record in a booth for a couple of weeks every year or so, and they get a nice hefty paycheck. And these movies are making bank so far, so I think you could negotiate a pay rise if you ask me. But yeah, what would these spin-offs be? Well, for stars, it feels obvious it'd make a Luigi's Haunted Mansion spin-off movie. That just feels like a given. And I'm not huge into modern Nintendo games, right? I still really enjoy them, I just don't keep up with them. But what I do know is that it's very well known that the Luigi game, the game that he appears in as the lead, his story, is this one. And thus I think this is the one that everybody's going to find the most interesting to see. Not only because it's the classic Luigi thing, but also because structurally, I feel like it would be the most different to anything we'd seen before. It is a Mario universe story, but it's a horror game. The big enemy is King Boo. Mario's missing. It's dark, it's creepy, it's dank. Luigi, who we know is probably not the bravest of souls, a Lionheart he is not, is forced to go into this spooky ass mansion to try and find his brother, And along the way, he has to face various different creepy specters and whatnot. Basically Ghostbusters, but with Luigi. What's not to love? And then he finally battles King Boo, he frees Mario. A fun reversal of the OG film, where Mario's main goal was to try to rescue his little brother. But here, little brother does the rescuing. And yeah, beyond that though, I'd say this would be a one and done type of deal. I don't know if you could realistically keep going down the well of Luigi's Mansion again and again without it starting to get very stale, a bit derivative. Playing games is a different experience. It's easier to change a few things a little bit and make it feel like a whole new experience. But for a film, you can't do that as easily, and I just don't think they'd be able to pull it off. It would get stale. But yeah, I'd say this is almost certainly in the pipeline for the future of the franchise, along with maybe a Super Peach film. I think that's a game that was made once, 2005 maybe? Yeah, I think so. You could adapt something along those lines. The actress has even expressed an interest in a specific Peach spin-off. Hell, actually, I think it would be a fun reversal of fortune to just chuck this into the second film. Have it be Peach who has to save Mario in the... well, I know they're not calling it a sequel, but we all know what it is. Have her have to save the Mario Bros. They can get kidnapped by the Koopalings. That'll have some fun sequences. Maybe she can keep little Bowser in his cage and she forces him to help her. I don't know, the possibilities are endless, and I think it just really adds to the fun. This would be great. But of course, this is a cinematic universe I want them to build, so we need more than just Peach leading the sequel and a Luigi standalone spin-off. We need more. What about Donkey Kong Country? We already have Donkey and the rest of the Kongs introduced to the world in the first movie, so obviously you've got that entry point. Maybe you want to flesh out Donkey's character a little bit more in the second film, but you don't have to. Because he was really good in the first film, especially considering I was expecting Seth Rogen to really suck. I did not like him in the Lion King remake. I haven't liked him in a lot of things I've seen. And I didn't think he was going to be all that good here. I wasn't excited to see one of my childhood favourites absolutely butchered on the big screen. But hey, turns out he wasn't. And I think they could be cooking with a Donkey Kong Country film. And it has the potential to turn into a whole spin-off franchise. Like, think of all the characters. Everything can do. How I wish for an adaptation of Donkey Kong 64.
Come on, Cranky, take it to the fridge.
Although with all that being said, might be a bit long for a single movie. That would probably work more as a TV show, and I don't see them going for a TV show after such massive box office triumphs. Like, they're going to be chasing the money. And then beyond that, beyond Donkey Kong Country, who knows? It's already a lot to be getting on with. Although, I would think at some point they're going to be having a crack at Super Mario Galaxy type stuff. I mean, that's just a pretty iconic chapter in the lore of Mario that took place here in the 2000s. And it also feels a bit different, so why not? And so yeah, I do think we're going to be seeing a big surge of these sorts of movies throughout the 2020s at the very least. Realistically, it's going to go into the 2030s and beyond. I mean, geez, Toy Story's still going. Geez, Despicable Me is still going. These things have legs. And I'm very, very excited for that, because Nintendo was my life as a little boy.
Chip away my life!
And it's great to see a bunch of these properties getting their chance to shine at long last, and hopefully, that nostalgic love that people have for the characters in the world, it's going to continue to help showcase everything to the fullest. Man, can't remember the last time I was so optimistic about a franchise before. Hell yeah, this Illumination Nintendo-verse, it's going to be big this decade, mark my words. But at the same time, that's not the only stuff we're going to be getting from Nintendo going forward. We also have a team up with Sony to bring us a Legend of Zelda adaptation. And yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not too sure about this one. I just don't see it.
You can't stop it. You can't see it.
I don't see it being good, or at the very least, satisfying at all. Like, Sony's done well with Spider-Verse, don't get me wrong. You can't deny that fact. But at the same time, I just don't know that Zelda's the right franchise to try to make a movie out of, because with Mario, much of it's very easy to grasp, very easy to explain, you can get the plot out quickly, the story's clear, no setup needed. It's very self-contained. Much like the games, really. Straightforward. But Zelda, especially the best installments, which for me, Ocarina of Time's my OG, they have a heavy narrative focus, far bigger than Mario does. Lots of characters, worlds, creatures, characters, places, exposition, plots, schemes, all of the more iconic stuff that you see in the games, classic elements. There's just too much to tell in a single movie, and on top of that, people want the stories of the most popular games brought to life, and in a film format, and I just don't see how it could work. It's too much. And so yeah, ultimately, whilst I am very hyped for the Nintendo-verse of Illumination, I have very limited interest in this part of things. Man, I tell you what, I really want a proper anime adaptation of The Legend of Zelda. Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Breath of the Wild, all of them, any of them, inject it into my veins, make it. How's it not been made? At this point, how's it not? I searched into Google, all I found was a fan-made one on YouTube, and then that very dank cartoon, and I'm pretty sure that was American. I'm begging you to make this, please. I know it's not really going to happen. I know that in my heart, but a man can dream, can't he? And yeah, didn't quite realize how hyped I was for Nintendo adaptations coming to the screen till I made this video. But I really, really am. This is the new era of animation. This is what I've been waiting for. They revolutionized the world of video games, established some of the most enduring and profitable characters ever. Now do the same for cinema. Let's do it! And so yeah, with all that being said, these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of my thoughts on the future of the Illumination Nintendoverse? And then The Legend of Zelda with Sony? Do you agree with me? Maybe not? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.